You wake up at 3:14 in the morning. Not from a noise, not from pain, just awake. Your mind is already running through a list you didn't ask for, and no matter how still you lie, your body refuses to pull you back under. By 2 in the afternoon, you are barely functional. Not sleepy exactly. More like there is a thin fog between you and everything you are trying to do. And at 10 o'clock at night, when every reasonable signal should be pointing toward rest, you are oddly alert. Sharp, even, almost restless. You may have filed all 3 of these under aging. You shouldn't have, because what you just described is not 3 separate problems. It is one problem, wearing 3 different masks. And the system responsible for all of it has a name, a specific rate of decline after 60, and this is the part that changes everything. A 3-day reset protocol that most people in your situation have never been offered. At around the 9-minute mark, I am going to show you something about the single most common piece of advice given to adults over 60 who cannot sleep. Something almost every doctor recommends. That is almost certainly making your body clock run later and weaker every week. Not because the advice is wrong for everyone, because it was designed for a body clock that is 20 to 30 years younger than yours. Stay with me for that. What I am about to share with you comes from years of working with adults in their 60s and 70s whose symptoms, the broken sleep, the afternoon fog, the unexplained weight, the flattened mood, were consistently explained away as the natural cost of getting older. In most of those cases, they were not. The system responsible for every one of those experiences is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN. It sits in the hypothalamus, a structure smaller than a grain of rice, and it runs every timing operation your body performs. When to release cortisol, when to drop your core temperature, when to secrete melatonin, when to activate your immune system, when to ramp up digestive enzymes, when to begin cellular repair. Think of it as the conductor of an orchestra, and your body as 37 trillion instruments that take their timing cues entirely from that conductor's baton. When the conductor is precise, every instrument knows exactly when to come in. The brass section, your cortisol, lifts you sharply out of bed at the right moment. The strings, your melatonin, draw you gently into deep sleep at the right hour. The whole performance runs on time, in sequence, and without effort on your part. After 60, the conductor loses amplitude, not the notes, the timing. The baton slows, the signals blur. And the instruments, your organs, your hormones, your gut, your immune cells, start arriving slightly late or slightly early or out of sequence entirely. The result is not one symptom, it is a cascade. Before I show you how that cascade unfolds, and more importantly, how to reverse it in 3 days, I want you to hear something that may reframe every bit of tiredness you have experienced in the last several years. The first place the orchestra falls out of time is sleep. The SCN controls melatonin production through a structure called the pineal gland. When the SCN's signal weakens after 60, 2 things happen simultaneously. First, melatonin secretion drops. By some estimates, adults over 60 produce as little as 1/4 of the melatonin they produced at 30. Second, the timing of that secretion shifts. Melatonin starts rising later in the evening and falls away earlier in the early morning hours. The result you may already know from the inside, is what sleep researchers call circadian phase disruption. Some adults find themselves genuinely sleepy at 8 in the evening, then wide awake at 3 or 4 in the morning. Others find they cannot feel genuinely sleepy until well past midnight, then feel impossible to rouse at 7. Neither pattern is insomnia in the traditional sense. Both are the orchestra playing out of time. The deeper problem is what happens in those lost hours. The hours your body is supposed to be running cellular repair, consolidating memory, and resetting your immune response. When your melatonin drops prematurely, at 2 or 3 in the morning, that repair window is cut short. Every single night, week after week. And the cumulative deficit is what starts to look, from the outside, like accelerated aging. Stay with me, because the second cascade is where this becomes personal for almost everyone watching. The second thing that happens when the conductor loses amplitude is that your metabolism starts operating in the wrong time zone. Your pancreas, your liver, and your digestive system each have their own internal clock, what scientists call peripheral clocks, that are calibrated and reset every day by the SCN's timing signal. When that signal blurs, the peripheral clocks begin operating on their own best guess, and the result is that insulin sensitivity, your cell's ability to respond to blood sugar, drops dramatically at hours it used to be high, and rises slightly at hours that serve no metabolic purpose. What this looks like from the outside: you eat the same food you have eaten for decades, at the same time, in the same amount, and the number on the scale moves in the wrong direction, or simply refuses to move at all. Your blood sugar behaves unpredictably. You feel genuinely hungry in the late evening, when every rational part of you knows you should not be. You may have been told this is a slowing metabolism. In a narrow sense, it is. But the more precise description is a metabolism that is on the right schedule for the wrong time zone. Your food is arriving when your body's processing capacity is at its lowest. Your insulin sensitivity peaks during hours you are asleep. There is a clinical name for this. It is called circadian metabolic misalignment. And once you correct the timing, not the food, not the calories, just the timing, many adults see measurable shifts in blood sugar regulation within 3 to 4 days. Here is the connection almost nobody makes, and it matters for everything that follows. The third cascade is the one most likely to have been explained to you as something you simply have to accept. Your brain depends on the SCN's timing signal to regulate two systems that govern your mood and your cognition every single day: the cortisol awakening response and the dopaminergic rhythm. The cortisol awakening response, researchers call it the CAR, is a sharp spike in cortisol that occurs in the first 30 to 45 minutes after you wake. In a well-calibrated body clock, this spike is the conductor's opening downbeat. It activates your prefrontal cortex, it sharpens attention, it elevates motivation, and sets your emotional tone for the entire day. After 60, if the SCN signal has lost amplitude, this spike is blunted. You wake up, but cortisol does not follow sharply. You describe it as never quite feeling fully awake, like moving through water for the first 2 hours of the morning, like needing 3 cups of coffee to reach the mental state that used to just be a Tuesday. When the cortisol awakening response is consistently blunted, morning after morning, month after month, the downstream effects include what most doctors call age-related cognitive slowing, what many adults over 60 experience as low motivation or mild low mood, and what almost nobody ever connects to the conductor losing the beat. Now, at around the 9-minute mark, as I promised, here is what most doctors currently recommend at this point, and here is precisely why it is making the problem worse. The most common recommendation for adults over 60 who report broken sleep, early waking, and afternoon fatigue is this: go to bed when you feel tired and rest in when your body asks for it. Follow your body's signals. That advice is not wrong. For a younger adult with a temporarily disrupted schedule, following the body's signals recalibrates the clock naturally and quickly. But your body after 60 is not temporarily disrupted. Its signals are structurally dampened. And when you follow a dampened signal, when you go to bed at 8:30 because the weakened conductor says 8:30 and then lie in until 8 the next morning, you are not recovering. You are reinforcing the SCN's new, quieter tempo rather than correcting it. The conductor starts conducting at 8:30, then at 8, then at 7:30. Every system downstream, your cortisol rhythm, your melatonin window, your metabolic readiness, your immune timing, follows the conductor into an earlier and earlier shift that is increasingly misaligned with daylight, social life, and your actual biological needs. The solution is not to fight the signal, it is to replace it with a stronger one. I want to tell you about a man in his early 70s, a retired head teacher. His wife mentioned, not him, that he had gone quiet, that he used to be the person who planned things, arranged dinners, remembered everyone's birthdays. And somewhere around 68 or 69, the initiative had simply stopped. He was still there, still kind, but quieter than she had known him in 40 years. He came in for what he believed was a memory check. His blood work was normal. His cognitive screening was normal. His GP had gently suggested this was a natural slowing down, something to monitor rather than treat. What we found was a severely blunted cortisol awakening response, a melatonin secretion onset that had shifted almost 4 hours later than age-matched norms, and a core temperature rhythm that had essentially flattened. the conductor barely audible. No new medications, no supplements at that stage. 3 changes only: outdoor light exposure within 20 minutes of waking each morning, a first meal within 60 minutes of rising, and a consistent 10:30 bedtime held even on the nights he did not feel sleepy, for the first 3 days. By day 7, his wife called. She said he had made a restaurant reservation somewhere they had not been in nearly 2 years. By 3 weeks, his retested cortisol awakening response showed a 43% improvement in amplitude. Same man, same conditions, same medications, 3 timing signals changed. Different outcome. Before I give you the 3 specific things to bring to your doctor, let me show you exactly what those 3 days look like, and why day 3 is the one most people underestimate. This protocol works because the SCN is not broken. It is understimulated. The 3 strongest external inputs to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the 3 Zeitgebers or time givers that communicate most directly with the conductor, are light, food timing, and body temperature. Over 3 days, you are going to deliver all 3 in a clear, consecutive, reinforcing sequence. Day 1 is the light anchor. Within 30 minutes of waking, before coffee, before your phone, before anything, you step outside into natural daylight for 10 to 15 minutes. This direct light exposure travels through the retinohypothalamic tract and delivers the clearest possible signal to the SCN. This is morning. The baton lifts. From that moment, every downstream system, cortisol, body temperature, digestive readiness, has a starting point it can actually use. That evening, 2 hours before the time you want to be asleep, all overhead lighting goes off. Dim lamps only. No bright screens. You are telling the conductor that evening has arrived, and the conductor is finally listening. Day 2 adds the food timing anchor. Your first meal, regardless of hunger, arrives within 60 minutes of waking. Not because you are forcing appetite, because your gut's peripheral clock needs the SCN's morning signal confirmed by the physical arrival of food. A second instrument joining the conductor's cue. That evening, your last caloric intake ends by 7 o'clock. Not because of caloric restriction, because your liver and pancreas are now aligned with the light signal from day 1, and eating past 7 asks them to process food during a window their clock has already prepared to close. Day 3 adds the temperature anchor. Your sleep environment needs to be cool, between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. Your core body temperature must drop by approximately 1 to 1.5 degrees to initiate deep sleep, and a cool room accelerates that drop measurably. On waking, a warm shower, not cold, raises your peripheral temperature, which triggers a compensatory cooling of your core and sharpens the cortisol awakening response. And the rule that matters most on day 3. No sleep after 3 in the afternoon. Even a 20-minute nap after that point discharges enough sleep pressure, the adenosine buildup that drives biological sleepiness, to push your melatonin onset later that evening and undo 2 days of conductor recalibration in a single afternoon. By the end of day 3, the orchestra is not perfect, but the conductor has a baton again. What I am about to give you now is not a general category of suggestions. These are 3 specific requests, with exact language, that open specific conversations with your doctor or pharmacist this week. The first, ask your GP for what is called a cortisol awakening response assessment. The exact words matter. Say, I would like to understand whether my cortisol awakening response is within normal range for my age. Has it ever been measured? That specific phrasing signals familiarity with circadian biology and will almost always open a more targeted conversation than a general complaint about fatigue or poor mornings ever would. The second, speak to your pharmacist and ask specifically, are any of the medications I am currently taking known to suppress melatonin production or blunt the cortisol awakening response? Beta blockers, among the most commonly prescribed blood pressure medications for adults over 60, are among the best documented suppressors of melatonin in the literature. Most patients are never told this. Your pharmacist has access to this information, and that one question opens the door. The third, ask your doctor. Is there an optimal time of day for me to take my blood pressure medication based on what is now known about circadian cardiovascular rhythms? Chronotherapy, Timing antihypertensive medications to match the body's natural blood pressure curve has been shown in peer-reviewed trials to meaningfully reduce cardiovascular events compared to morning dosing. Most prescriptions are still written without a timing instruction. That one question may change the hour at which you take a medication you have been taking at the same time for years. You wake up at 3:14 in the morning, not from a noise, not from pain, just awake. What you know now that you did not know an hour ago is this: that waking has a conductor behind it. A specific biological mechanism with a name, a measurable amplitude, and a 3-day recalibration approach that has shifted the trajectory for people in exactly your situation. This does not ask how you go back to 55. It asks how you move forward with what you now know. The conductor is still there. It has not disappeared. It has simply become too quiet for the orchestra to follow clearly. Your job, for the next 3 days, is to give it something strong enough to lead with. Over the next 7 days, I want you to do one thing. Each evening, note the exact time you feel what I would call biological sleepiness. Not tiredness from a long day, not heaviness from a heavy meal, but the specific sensation of your eyelids becoming genuinely heavy on their own terms. Note that time. Note whether you honored it, whether you went to bed at that moment, or whether you pushed through it. Do not act on the data yet. Just collect 7 numbers. Because what those numbers reveal about your specific chronotype and what they predict about a cardiovascular risk window that most adults over 60 have never had explained to them is what I am going to show you next week, and it may be the most practically useful thing we have covered yet. One important note before you go. Everything in this video is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for the advice of your personal physician. Please do not stop or adjust any medication without first speaking to the doctor or pharmacist responsible for your care. The goal of this video is to give you a more complete picture of your own biology and better questions to bring to the people who can act on them with you. That conversation is where the real progress begins.